I have no words. I have no words. More injuries. I need the season to be over, and that's what we're going to talk about on today's episode of Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. We're also available on SiriusXM. Just search Locked On Blue Jackets on the SXM app. And again, like I said in the opener, I just don't really have any more words. Like, more injuries. I thought we were done with this. I talked literally 2 days ago about how the Blue Jackets were slowly getting healthier. They got Justin Danforth back. They got Alex Nylander back. Sean Crowley was close to a return. I was like, okay, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We can see a path to the Monsters getting all of their guys back. And then Johnny Gaudreau out with an illness, which I didn't realize until like 10 minutes into the game because I didn't see any of the pregame stuff because I was recording some bonus content for you guys. So no Johnny Gaudreau. And then at the end of the first period, Daniil Tarasov gets kneed in the head by David Jiricek, who, in fairness to him, was being extremely hounded by Pierre Engvall. So I'm not really blaming Jiricek for this, but that did not look good for Tarasov, that's such a gut punch he was so good for the entire month of March. Like, he was in the last game against the Avs, phenomenal, truly incredible. And then obviously he was playing too well and we couldn't have that. So Tarasov injured. That looks like a concussion any day of the week to me. Maybe I'm wrong. I know they didn't really have any kind of post-game updates on Tarasov, but he did not look good getting off the ice and then very slowly walking down the tunnel, which is not usually a good sign. So Tarasov out, Greaves comes in. We're going to talk about Greaves in a second here. And then with 5 minutes left in the game, I want to say, Jake Bean blocks a shot, immediately drops, manages to skate off, which is a good sign, and then leaves the bench, doesn't come back. He's going to be out for, quote, a while. My assumption is that's a broken foot. Just the way that the shot blocked, the way that he dropped, and the fact that he is going to be out for a while makes me think, oh, okay, that's a broken ankle. So there's Jake Bean done for the season. So I guess Jake Christiansen, welcome on back to Columbus. Just these endless injuries. And I've seen a lot of talk, and this is kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit, is I see a lot of speculation on wow, the Blue Jackets get so injured every single season. How can they, is this a training issue? Is this a conditioning issue? Is this a medical staff issue? And I'm not ruling out that it could be all of these things, but you can't condition yourself to not get concussed. And I'm not saying that all of the injuries are not as a result of poor conditioning or the strength coach or the medical staff or whatever, but these two specific injuries, Tarasov got kneed in the head. You can't condition your way out of not being concussed. And I also don't think you can condition yourself to not break a bone if you get hit in the ankle with a puck. So these two injuries are just horrific luck. I think something that does worry me about the injuries is the amount of shoulder injuries and torn labrums we've seen from this team for the past couple of years. I think with Kent Johnson's, I believe that's the 4th or 5th over 2 seasons, because that's, I want to say 5th, because last season, obviously, Zach Werenski went down with a torn labrum. Just a Danforth, Jake Bean, both went down pretty early on in the season with separated shoulders, torn labrums. And I think Eric Branson, I don't think he tore his labrum, but I think he might have, he definitely had some kind of shoulder injury. I want to say it was a separated shoulder or a dislocated shoulder at the very end of last season. And then Ken Johnson this year, another torn labrum. So there's 5, and that does worry me a little bit. But I look at this team and I'm like, what if they had literally any kind of luck? Literally any. They won't, because why would they? But just such a frustrating couple of injuries there. And I feel like that's my new buzzword, is frustrating, because that's how this team has been. And I haven't even had a chance to talk about like the play, because I got caught up in, again, yet more injuries. I know Zach Werenski went weirdly into the boards, and it seems like he was fine, but that didn't look good for a second. Had, again, nightmare flashbacks of like knee injuries and ankle injuries from that, but I guess he's okay. He played almost 25 minutes a night again. Because why not? Why wouldn't he? The ice time, I'm not even going to get into, because the ice time is insane. They're doing the thing again where some guys inexplicably get 1 million minutes and some guys just do not. David Jiricek, 12:49. So more ice time than I was expecting. Less than I think he deserves. I would be interested to know. I'm going to see if I can pull up the shift chart real quick, and just talk about David Jiricek a little bit, because I did think that maybe he was going to be sitting down for a while after he took Daniil Tarasov out of the game, and then he sure did. He was playing pretty regular shifts up until that point. He did finish that shift. It was right at the beginning of the shift that the injury happened, actually. If I'm looking at this correctly, which I should be. And then he didn't play for kind of the first third of the period. It was a lot of Gabranson, Provorov being paired together. So Jiricek and Bean both sat. And then speaking of Bean, he didn't play again after blocking that shot in the during the Islanders power play, I believe it was. Yes, it would have been the Islanders power play. He blocked the shot, and then didn't see the ice again after that. So that's again a not even an avoidable injury. Like that's just bad luck, and it sucks. And I think Jake Bean again has been a real boon to this team this season. I think he's been really good, and now the Blue Jackets are going to have to call up from Cleveland again. They might have to call up twice. Like they might need to get another goalie, depending on where Elvis is, because I'm not expecting to see Tarasov again this season. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being over dramatic, but like to me, that didn't look good. The how slow he was to get up, how slow he was to walk off the ice. Like maybe he just had his bell rung, but I am preparing for the worst here, and the worst is that the Blue Jackets are going to be finishing the season with Jet Greaves and Malcolm Subban. The Monsters will have to make do with Pavel Chayan and whatever goalie PTO they can sign for the next kind of week and a half, because the Monsters still have games to play and playoffs to make. They lost most recently to Rochester, have fallen to third in the division after sitting at first in the division for so long. They've got 7 games left, and they need to get, if I can pull up the playoff primer real quick, their magic number is 7. So they need to get 7 points out of these next 7 games. And like, it'll help if Utica and Belleville lose, because that's how magic numbers work, is if you gain points, it goes down. If the team's outside of a playoff spot loses points, it'll also. So like Utica has 2 games against Toronto this weekend, and Belleville has a game against Springfield and 1 against Syracuse. So if both of those teams could lose some games this weekend, the Monsters number will go down, we hope. The North Division continues to be stupid. I think there's still there's 10 teams have clinched. 12 teams have clinched in the Atlantic, and there are still 12 of the 23 teams in the AHL have clinched right now, and another 3 could clinch before someone in the North Division does. So you could be up to 15 of the 23 teams before the first North Division team clinches a playoff spot. Stupid. Truly stupid. Anyway, we'll talk a little bit more about Cleveland probably next week. We'll see if we can get Dina back on, and we can yell about how stupid this team has been in terms of injuries and taking from Cleveland. But let's take a quick break. I want to talk a little bit more about the Islanders game. I want to talk about Jet Greaves, because, man, if no one else did, he deserved the win. So we'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked on Blue Jackets. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with that 3% match. There's no cap on that 3% match either, which is great. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started now at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply, and now some legal information. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SPIC, is a registered broker-dealer. Welcome back to Locked on Blue Jackets. We're talking about goalies again, always, because they're the only ones that show up in these games. It feels like maybe that's unfair. I thought there were definitely that Sillinger line showed up. Cole Sillinger, actually. I want to briefly talk about Cole Sillinger before we get into the goalies. He has, in the past handful of games, been matched up against the other team's top line. Which is great, and it feels a little bit like they're doing what they did with what they're doing. Feels like what they're doing to him is what they did to Daniil Tarasov, kind of in the middle of the season, where they were like, "Hey, we think you can be the number 1 goalie, so we're going to throw you out there and see what happens, and we're going to play you a bunch of games and see what happens." And it feels like a little bit like they're doing the same thing to Cole Sillinger of, "Hey, we think you can be a top center on this team. Let's go." So he got matched up against, I believe he got matched up against the Crosby line against Pittsburgh. He definitely got matched up against the McKinnon line in Colorado, and it's less terrifying, but he did get matched up against the Horvat-Barzal line last night against the Islanders. And quite frankly, I think he's doing okay. His numbers were not sparkling on the ice. He was the 4th best Blue Jacket in terms of Corsi for percentage, but also the highest was Dmitry Vronkov with 47%. So, like, no one had a good night, but Cole Sillinger continues to not give up a ton offensively, which is nice. When you look at when you look at the numbers that some other players are giving up, for example, like Alex Nylander, who gave up 1.59 expected goals against last night. Cole Sillinger's 0.74 looks pretty good. And I like him with Marchenko, and I believe he played with Marchenko and Texier last night, which was I enjoyed that. I thought it was a good line. I thought it it was not the worst it could possibly have been. The Pucha, Vronkov, Nylander line actually came out with a positive Corsi 4% percentage at 5-on-5, which is exciting. So like the top two lines were, I thought, fine. They could have been a lot worse than they were, quite frankly. And I have liked seeing Cole Sillinger grow this season. I think he's really bounced back from that bad sophomore season he had, which I expected. And I could see him as, honestly, depending on, again, what the Blue Jackets do in the draft this summer is kind of up for negotiation. But like in a year or so, your down the middle guys could be Fantilli at 1, Sillinger at 2, Voronkov at 3, and then literally whoever at 4. Like, I don't know, Hunter McCown or Josh Dunn or God, I don't know, literally anyone. It's the 4th line, it doesn't matter. But if Cole Sillinger can come into his own and be a really good 2C in this league, that's exciting for me. And I think it gives the Blue Jackets a little bit more flexibility because in the draft this year, they could have to choose between, do they want another center? Do they want a winger? Do they want a defenseman? Ivan Demidov is a really, really intriguing prospect. I know the Blue Jackets love their Russian prospect, and I think Demidov could be a really interesting add. If you have Cole Sillinger who can play that 2C position, I still think I would go with one of Lindstrom or Catton, just in terms of, like, you could never have too many centers, and this team has historically struggled with having centers. But if you end up drafting Demidov, then, like, there's yet another impact top 6 winger that you can put with anyone. So I like this. I like what they're doing with Sillinger. I'm excited to see who he matches up with against for the rest of the season and whether he thrives in that. Now, let's talk about Daniil Tarasov. Nope, we're not going to talk about Daniil Tarasov. We'll talk about him. We'll talk about Jet Greaves, who came in cold and was fantastic. He played just under 40 minutes because he came in with about 3 minutes left in the first period, and then they pulled the goalie with like 2 minutes left at the end of the period. Daniil Tarasov left the game at 17:53. So Jet Greaves came in with just over 2 minutes left, and then they pulled the goalie at the end. So he made 24 of 25 saves in 40 minutes. So he was on pace for like facing probably 38 saves, 39 saves. Allowed 1 goal, had a save percentage of .960, and that's, again, coming in cold and dealing with that second period from the Islanders where the Blue Jackets were outshot 14-6. They kind of turned it around a little bit in the third period. They outshot the Islanders 12-9, but Ilya Sorokin's a very good goalie, man. I know he's had kind of not the season that the Islanders expected from him or needed from him, but he had a good game, 25 of 27 saves. And I think Jet Greaves, it would have been really easy for this team to kind of crumble when Tarasov left the game. And for Jet Greaves to come in and really struggle. And he didn't. He started off, I think his first save was some insane, like, oh, that's definitely going in. Nope, no, it's not. He made an insane paddle save where he was going one way, the puck was going the other, and he just kind of reached out and swatted at the puck and somehow managed to keep it out. Like, he was great. And it sucks that, once again, this team couldn't really muster any kind of goals for him. It was 2-2 at the end of the first period, I want to say. So the Islanders scored first, Blue Jackets tied it, Islanders scored again, Blue Jackets tied it again, it was 2-2, and then nothing happened in the second period. Both goalies were great. Noah Dobson scores with like 3 minutes into the third period, and then they add an empty netter after. It takes them a minute to score that empty netter, actually. I think it takes them about 90 seconds, and there's, again, lots of great chances for the Blue Jackets and some fairly solid defensive work from Zach Werenski, who just decides that the Islanders aren't scoring an empty net goal. Obviously, they do, but it was less comical than it is sometimes, where, sometimes I feel like this season the Blue Jackets have pulled the goalie and then immediately allowed the empty net, and that didn't happen this time. So really, this was not a 4-2 game. It was a 3-2 game. I know that's kind of been my thing all season, has been, since I started this podcast, is empty net goals don't count. It was a 3-2 game. Against the Islanders, a team that's pushing to make the playoffs. It is what it is. It would have been nice if they'd kind of rallied and won it for Greaves, who came in cold and it was fantastic. It would have been nice if they'd kind of gotten a win for Boone Jenner, who's obviously away from the team at the minute on compassionate leave, and they couldn't do it. But I thought it was about what I expected. I liked that they scored a power play goal. That was fun. They scored on their only power play opportunity of the game. Dmitry Ronkov scores his first goal in like 10 games or something. So he's almost at 20 goals on the season. So we could have double Russian 20 goal scorers, which would be fun. But it just felt like such a weird, empty game, which there were 6 goals in this game. It wasn't an empty game, but it felt like that. And quite frankly, Jack Greaves deserved better. So we'll take another quick break, and then we're going to talk about the CHL playoffs, because I believe we have a couple of players that have moved on to the second round, and I think that's exciting. So we'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I want to tell you about eBay Motors, because passion, drive, and patience is the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. They've got superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, literally whatever you can think of to put on your car. eBay Motors has you covered, whether you're into speed, power, or style. They've got over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, so you're always going to find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, that part is guaranteed to fit your ride every single time, or you're going to get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. They've got all the parts you need at the prices you want, so it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to US customers. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're talking not about the Blue Jackets, but about the CHL, which is, quite frankly, the only joy that I have had in the last little while. Let's start up with the WHL. The Moose Jaw Warriors defeat the Brandon Wheat Kings in 4-0, so they sweep the series. Denton Mateychuk scores the insurance goal and then assists on another goal. So he is, again, a 2-point night. He has arrived after scoring his first of the season, his first of the playoffs, excuse me, in game 3. He's now up to 7 points in 4 games. So I think it's fair to say that Denton Mateychuk has arrived. Martin Reshavi had that great, I want to say game 1 maybe, game 1 or 2. Had that 3-point game, hasn't recorded a point since, but is still 3 points in 4 games is still pretty good in my books for a 7th round NHL pick. I think I'm not expecting Reshavi to do anything kind of insane, especially at the NHL level, but I think he's going to be a really fun piece for the Monsters next season, and also the Monsters in the playoffs if they get there, which we're all crossing our fingers and hoping for the best. But that's them. Let's go on over to the OHL, because the London Knights also have cruised their way to a 4-0 series win with a 3-2 victory over the Flint Firebirds last night. Max McHugh, obviously the free agent that the Blues a penalty last night, did not appear on the score sheet, but in this series has 5 points in 4 games, which is pretty darn good if you ask me. He's another guy that I'm really excited to see with the Monsters whenever London series finishes. I don't know when it will finish. I think that the London Knights are probably going to go the distance unless something terrible happens. In which case, who knows? But Max McHugh, I think, is going to be an interesting guy to watch. The other guy in that conference whose series is over is Nolan Lalonde of Saginaw Spirit, who again I don't believe has played. I think he's been sitting on the bench. But hey, you still get the wins. Lalonde did not play in this series, but Saginaw is moving on, and I'm sure if they stumble, because I believe they're going to be playing the Sioux Greyhounds, who also swept their series in the next series, then Lalonde's got to be ready. The most interesting series so far to me has been the Ottawa 67 to the Brantford Bulldogs. Obviously, Luca Pinelli playing for the 67s. Ottawa lost the first game 5-2 and didn't look great doing it. They then won the second game 6-3. They won the third game 5-2, and they just won in overtime last night to take a 3-1 lead over the series as, I believe, the 7th seed playing. Well, the 6th seed playing the 3rd seed, excuse me. So they were the underdogs in this, and Luca Pinelli, strangely, did not appear on the score sheet in this entire game. He took a slashing penalty in the second period, and that was it. But he again he has arrived in the playoffs. He again 5 points in 4 games for including 4 goals for the 67s. They need one more win to shut down the Bulldogs, and they will move on to, let's see if I can find who they're going to be playing. They're probably going to be playing the North Bay Battalion, who are currently up 3-1 on the Kingston Frontenacs. Another tough series. The Ottawa 67s are going to be the underdogs the whole way, I think. Although the Sudbury Wolves, who were the 8th seed playing the 5th seed playing the 4th seed, excuse me, they're currently up 3-1 on the Mississauga Steelheads as well. So the OHL could get interesting. The QMJHL has kind of finished without fanfare for Blue Jackets fans. Jordan Dumais did not ice for the Halifax Mooseheads in their sweep. He was suspended for the first game of the playoffs, and then an injury kept him out of 2, 3, and 4. They got swept by the Acadie Bathurst Titan, who are moving on. And I believe the St. John Sea Dogs got swept by the Drummondville Voltigeurs. So Tyler Peddle's season is also over. And now we kind of wait and see with Dumais whether he comes to Columbus, whether he comes to Cleveland, whether he's healthy to do either of those things, what happens with his court date for his DUI. I believe that's Monday, I want to say, is the date for his court appearance. So we'll keep you guys updated on that. But honestly, like the hopes for the Blue Jackets are kind of sitting with the OHL and the WHL right now. QMJHL, not a factor, which is strange because last season that was the league I talked about the most, because obviously they had Dumais, who went to the final with the Mooseheads, and James Malatesta, who went to the final with the Quebec Ramparts, and they ended up winning the whole thing. And Malatesta, Memorial Cup MVP and playoff MVP for the QMJHL. So now we just watch the QMJL fade away. The only other guy that I have to give you a quick update on is Oiva Keskinen, who plays today their first game against Kalpar, who again I'm expecting Tapara to win this series handily. Their game starts in like 3 hours. So this weekend we'll give you some updates on Keskinen. I forgot how to read a calendar. I thought they played last night. They don't. But that's it kind of for playoffs. We're still waiting for the Frozen Four to start. Obviously, Brindley is going to be in that, and also Aiden Treshuk with Boston College. So we'll keep you guys updated on that as and when it happens. I'm very excited to watch the Frozen Four. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And like I said, we'll keep you guys updated. That's going to be it from me today. Tomorrow, we're going to do a bonus episode because I missed yesterday due to a migraine. So we'll be talking about whoever the heck the Blue Jackets are playing on Saturday, which I want to say it's the Lightning, but I might be making that up. It's the Flyers. So a little bit less terrifying than the Lightning. Theoretically a winnable game. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there, but we'll talk about it tomorrow on Locked On Blue Jackets. Thank you for listening, for making it your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms, over on YouTube and on SiriusXM. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.